Hey, it's Russell Graves coming to you from the barn at Hackberry Farm, and thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to start a brand new series. It's called What Makes This Picture Memorable? And this format is borrowed from other channels I've seen on YouTube. This one in particular is called What Makes This Song Great? And in those videos, the host of that channel, Rick Beato, he'll break down songs and tell you why he thinks those songs are so great and so memorable. So in that same spirit and in the same vein, we're going to talk about pictures that are memorable to me, and hopefully in the future we'll talk about your pictures as well. Hey, if you like these videos, be sure to hit like and subscribe below so that way we can bring you more of this type of content. Okay, so into the pictures. The first picture I thought about was this one we're looking at right here, Star Trails. This is here on Hackberry Farm. I took this shot about a year ago. And there's a few things that make it memorable for me. Number one, it had been a long time since I'd been into star trail photography. The last time I did star trails was back when I shot film 20 years ago. And in those days, you'd put the camera on a tripod and set it up and let the exposure run for 4 or 5 hours, and hopefully you got a good shot from that. Now with digital, you can't do that because of the heat it builds up in the sensors and the noise it creates. So this was my first attempt back at star trails, and I don't know why I waited so long, but I did this about a year ago. And so when I did the star trails, I set my camera out all night. All this was intentional the way I did it. I set my camera out at night. You know, when you do star trails, you take a bunch of images and then you composite them together in some sort of post-processing. I used Photoshop for this one. But one of the things really intentional about this, and I'll break it down for you, is number one, I really wanted as much sky as I could, so I shot this with a 15mm fisheye lens. You can see the curvature of the landscape behind you. I could have corrected that to some degree, but it didn't really bother me because to me the circular nature of the horizon lends itself well to the circular nature of the bell, and then the circles in the stars. And so I thought it all really fit well together. Another thing that was really intentional about this was the foreground is illuminated by moonlight. You know, for a long time, I really like shooting pictures by moonlight, and I've done that a lot with digital photography. But again, for some reason or another, I don't know why I took so long to go back to star trail photography when I did, but using the moon as a light source to paint foregrounds is something I've done quite a bit, and I really enjoy that. So the night I took this picture, as I recall, we had about I think about a quarter moon, and so the very first exposure I took, I let the moonlight expose for the frame. And so because of that, I think the first shot was probably a 5-minute exposure. It was enough light to really paint this landscape. It's kind of a surreal looking golden light, as well as this hay bale. And if you notice, this hay bale on the top edge, it's kind of got a gradient to it where it's more lit there than it is at this bottom left edge. It's in the shade, and the reason why, because to the west over in this area there's a line of trees, and when the moon got down below that, because it was a setting moon that night, when the moon got down below it, it started casting the shadow from the trees across the hay bale. One of the things I really like to do when I'm doing shots like this is try to do as much practical effects as I can. I know how to do post-processing, I know how to do composites, I know how to do a lot of that stuff and use those tools that we can once you get a picture back in the computer. But for me, I like the process of designing a picture and trying to get it as right as I can in the camera before I even start messing with the post-processing. So that was the spirit behind trying to use the moon to paint the foreground and the hay bale before I even try to bring in any kind of artificial lights or do anything in post-processing. And so once we got the base shot down and the moon set, really it was a matter of just doing the star trails. I can't remember exactly how many pictures are in this one. I think I let the star trails run about 2 hours, because I do recall I had to get up and leave early the next morning, so I didn't want to stay up really late, and I didn't want to leave my camera out all night that night because it was going to be humid later on. It would just get soaked with water, with humidity. And so I think it's a couple hours of star trails. You can tell that because the star trails aren't really long, and that's fine. For me, I didn't really need the whole circular trails. And so once I had my base shot done, I took all the star trail images, pretty simple setup, 30-second images, and then stack a bunch of them together, and it really exposed for the sky. And then once I got them all stacked together, I did the composite, and the first glance, I was really excited about it. I was so excited, in fact, and I don't do this a lot. My wife, who's in the next room, when I did my first glance at this on the computer afterwards, I told her to come in and take a look at this picture. I was so excited about it. And really, the first preview of this picture is almost like it looked here. I did darken the sky a little bit in the end. I didn't do much to the foreground at all, but I did make the sky a little bit darker, just because if you look over here in the left-hand side of the frame, that's a town called, over in Oklahoma. It's about 45 miles away from here, and we've got a little light pollution there. And then besides darkening the sky, I didn't do a whole lot. You know, we got a few surprises in the frame. Number one, it doesn't surprise me, we had a couple of airplanes fly through. Number two, this little bit of orange there, that was a scud cloud that flew through. And I could always use generative fill and get rid of those, but they don't bother me enough to even want to mess with it like that. But the two things that really was a delightful surprise in the end that I got is, number one, if you see all these little chartreuse looking specks through here, I got a lot of fireflies in the picture, and it really surprised me because we have a lot of fireflies here on Hackberry Farm, but they usually peak in June, and then there's still a few hanging around throughout the rest of the year. But those few that are hanging around, they're few and far between. But to get this many in that picture, and I didn't really even notice they were there, they must have happened after I left the camera behind to do the star trails. And so that was a pleasant surprise, because for me, it's kind of the trifecta of lighting. I've got the fireflies, I've got moonlight, I've got starlight, all illuminating the scene. And then really one of the other things that was a pleasant surprise, and I didn't really catch this at first, and this wasn't intentional. This was after the fact that someone pointed this out to me once I posted on social media, but they like the repeating circles of the hay bale and then the stars, how almost those circles repeat themselves in the frame. And once someone pointed it out to me and I saw it, I kind of liked it as well. And so for me, it's all of those things I really like about this picture. One of the things that I really appreciate about it is the fact that it was shot 200 yards from my house. You know, anytime I can shoot a picture on my own property and see the product of my own work, whether it comes to the conservation work I do or just being foresighted enough, like in this example, to leave that hay bale there when all the other hay was picked up from the field. I left that one there because I knew it'd make a good picture. Whenever I can kind of design a picture like that in my mind and then execute it to the point where I make a picture like this, it's that memorable, it's always a good time for me. So that's what I think makes this picture memorable. Again, if you like these kind of videos, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it, and I'll see you next time.